Alright, so this is my Konkr Pocket Fit, the Ioneo sub-brand, the cheaper one. And this is my first Ioneo device. I'm already experiencing some issues here. Alright, sometimes the Y button does it, sometimes you can swipe up. We're already, I wanted to do an intro, but we're already getting into the critiques of this device. It's a little wonky, it's a little jank, not quite there. I'm not some big time retro handheld reviewer or tech reviewer. I bought this thing with my own money. I've never been sent anything for free. At the time of this recording, I'm a very small channel, but I wanted to share my experience with this thing because, yeah, a lot of reviewers got this for free last year and they hyped the hell out of it, and that's why I pre-ordered one. And then there were lots of issues with the pre-order campaign, and then Ioneo wasn't really communicating with the people, and the thing got delayed and delayed and delayed again. And I even tried to cancel mine, but they didn't respond to me until after they shipped it out. So whatever. I mean, I did get what I paid for. We'll get into it, the whole quality of this thing. Hopefully the camera quality is good enough for you guys to see the screen, get a good idea of how this thing looks and functions. So yeah, I got mine, and I'm honestly pretty happy with it. I know that's not the popular sentiment online, and understandably so. I mean, yeah, my device even has some issues, but nothing that makes me want my money back. Like I'm pretty satisfied with it. But as you did see in the beginning there, it's not the most consistent device. So far with it, so good. It's been about a month I've had it, maybe a little over a month. And I haven't reached out to Ioneo via email or anything with any of my issues. I figure, based on the experience I've already had, there's probably a higher chance of them seeing this video than actually responding to, a random consumer's email. So yeah, let's get into it. Maybe we could get another bug to show up here. As you could see, when everyone else shows this device off, they usually have the RGB turned on, the analogs, and I have that turned off because that's probably the worst bug I have to deal with here. I don't even remember. Here it is, RGB effects. You would think it's under the controller option in the quick menu, but it's under device. Fair enough, I guess. There we go. So sometimes I'll turn on the device, from a cold boot. It'll be frequent. Sometimes it won't happen at all. Sometimes it'll be intermittent. The RGBs around the analog sticks will just randomly flash to max brightness. It usually happens the most while I'm actually using the sticks and while I'm playing something. So far it's behaving. Let's load into Tower. Oh god. It happens for some reason. It happens in some apps more than others. I don't understand why that is. I haven't updated Tower of Fantasy. Hopefully there's no update needed for Tower of Fantasy. You'll just have to take my word for it that sometimes the sticks wig out, the RGB on the sticks wig out, and there hasn't been any updates for it. There have been updates to some of the Ioneo apps individually, but there hasn't been like an actual system firmware update since I've gotten this thing. It's still on version 1.0 or whatever. I don't know if that's going to change. That's another thing I've heard about Ioneo. They don't have the best long-term support for their devices. But like I said, this is like the analog stick issue with the lights that's the most serious thing I've run into. Hopefully nothing else bad crops up. Oh, okay, it's gonna take a while to apply that update. Alright, so this seems like it's gonna take a while. In the meantime, I'll talk about the controls. Hopefully it shows up decently on camera there. I don't have the best lighting setup, so please bear with me. But yeah, 2 sticks, D-pad, regular face buttons, triggers, back buttons. So right now in the software, you can change most of what these buttons do, and you can customize these little extra nubs. You have your R1, R2, and then you have a little bit of a, what actually is this? Oh, yeah, because since sticks are normally R and L3, these are just RC and LC. So I have this handy dandy, I have the right one set to this handy dandy little overlay here. Shows you temps, fan speed, frame rate, all that good stuff. And then I just have the left one mapped to notifications, so you can see that. Pull it up really easily rather than swiping down, since this is Android. Yeah, and I think you could customize these to whatever you want, really. Unfortunately, what you cannot customize are the back buttons. For whatever reason, I believe it's the left one, is mapped to like confirm, but it's not like the same confirm as A. It's like if you press it in a game, it won't do the same thing that the A button does in a game, but like if you press it on the homes, here, I'll show you. Let's close out of this. Like if I press the back button on the home screen, it launches into the app. Yep, just the back left one. And I accidentally, like, maybe I'm in the minority on this one. I hate back buttons on controllers and handhelds, and I always disable them when I can. So far, on this firmware, on the software, there's no option to disable it. You can like remap it to a very limited set of options, I believe. Let's go into the IA settings. So it comes with, well, you have a little gamepad tester there. You have IA space and IA setting and then system update. Those are the built-in INEO apps I told you about. So IA space is mainly for doing like emulation and stuff to organize all your ROMs and stuff. More about that later. So IA setting. And then control, you could also do a lot of this stuff from the quick menu with the INEO button over there. Custom button is the two little mini ones up top that I told you about. Custom keys. Okay, so I was wrong. You actually cannot, you actually can't remap the back buttons. They're just what they are, and you can't even disable them. That's unfortunate. While we're here, we have controller mode, INEO, which is, I guess, like Android mode or something. Like regular Android D input or whatever. And then I guess if it doesn't work with a certain game or emulator or whatever, if it doesn't rec it, oh, see it, we got the flash. That's the flash I was telling you about. Happened again. Oh, it's happening. I'm not even using them. It usually only happens when I'm using it. Hopefully the camera caught that, but yeah, it's yeah, that's what happens, and that's why I keep the, oh, there it is. That's why I keep the RGBs off, and even though I could turn it off, actually let's back out of this completely, just to make sure it doesn't conflict with anything in that app. Even if you turn them off, if you turn them all the way off, so I had them set to blue over there, as you saw before, they just, yep, they're doing it again. They will just randomly flicker green. Even if you turn them completely off, they will just randomly flicker green. I don't know if anybody else is having this issue. I haven't seen people talk about that. Usually when people bring up their criticisms with this device and why they don't recommend it, it's usually just down to INEO by being INEO. I haven't actually seen anyone criticize the device itself for like how it operates and functions and how they're used and stuff. But yeah, so I keep it off. Even then, if I keep it off, it'll flash green, but it won't be like the max brightness flash, that will give you seizures and stuff. So pick your poison, I guess. So yeah, let's see. I accidentally hit the back button again, went into the test, didn't want to do that. I just really wanted to disable. I don't know, like maybe tons of people use back buttons. I find them annoying, and I always accidentally press them. They're always so easy to press. Like I have a Steam Deck, I always press them accidentally. I'm so glad that they're not mapped to anything by default, because I'm always pressing them by accident, Especially if you're just like sometimes you're just having an intense session and you have a tighter grip on your handheld or whatever, or your controller. Your fingers, they're gonna accidentally press them. Happens. Before I was interrupted by the flashing, we have INEO setting, and then we have Xbox setting. So that's something you can try if it doesn't recognize your controller input. And speaking of, let's go into Stellasora. So I have one of those telescopic phone controllers. You could, USB-C plugs into any USB-C phone, slap it in, it turns your phone into a little handheld. So when I play Stellasora with that same telescopic controller, flashing on, with the left stick, you will get a little cursor on the screen. That doesn't happen on this device. So it's weird. It does use controller. Like, see, if I hit B, it'll ask me if I want to exit game, like the back button. And then let's go into a level so I can show you this. So see, I'm using the touch screen to get through the menu. Normally I wouldn't have to do, when I'm using the phone and the controller grip, don't have to do that. But here I have to, because you can't do any of the menu controls. And I thought that's just the way they made the mobile version of this game until I tried the other phone with the controller grip. That's not the case. So as you can see, the controller works. See, I'm using the left stick, she's moving. and it knows I'm using a controller because it has, LR, ABXY for all your attacks. So it knows I'm using a controller. But for some reason, there's no cursor for the menu. So I can use buttons, but I can't navigate the menu. Yeah. Let's load back. So like if I want to choose level, I gotta use a touchscreen like this. If I was on the controller grip with a regular phone, the triggers will go back and forth or up and down depending on what kind of menu you're in. And then you have that little cursor, so you could use the cursor and the A button to click on stuff, right? That makes sense. And when you're in a level or when you're in the cutscene, it'll show the controller prompts: A to continue, B stop, forward, auto, like cutscenes, visual novel type segments in this thing. So it's not that like one is a controller and one is not a controller. And even if I switch this over to Xbox mode, emulate Xbox Bluetooth controller, which is what I assume, the controller grip is doing for my other phone, still nothing. No cursor, buttons don't do anything other than backing out. That's the only menu control you get, is B button backing out. I don't know why that is, or if there's anything I could do about it. Maybe it's just an INEO thing. D-pad don't do nothing. If I use the D-pad on the controller grip, it snaps onto the different menu options. Can't do any of that. Exit game, I can do that, but I can't see. It doesn't even give me button prompts for this one, so gotta use touch controls. So if that is something INEO can fix, I would greatly appreciate that. I don't think that's on Stellasora. I think because, it works fine with my other controller, and the controller support is in the game. I would show you Tower of Fantasy, but it looks like it's going to take an hour to apply the update. But it's the same deal with Tower of Fantasy. There's no like cursor option, but it does detect that you are using a controller. It shows all the button prompts and stuff. The controls work for the in-game actions. It's just all the menu stuff. You don't get a cursor for it. And that's part of the reason I wanted to do this video, because I see so many reviews for these retro handhelds or these Android handhelds, and nobody really ever gets into, the daily quality of life type experience you're going to get with these things. Like, not a soul that I've seen, make a video on these things has really gone into that, and that's because all the people that buy these, they just do emulation stuff. And as I mentioned before, we have the iSpace thing. That's for emulation. You can set up your favorite front end or whatever. Have anything to show you there. So I don't do that. I don't use this for that. And some of you might have peeped Game Native. I don't use this for that either, but we'll talk about that later. I bought this because I want a Android gaming handheld. As in, yeah, I could get a flagship phone, play games, and run them pretty well on that. But one, flagship phones are extremely expensive, and this thing has pretty much flagship specs in it. And when I bought it, it was $240, I believe, plus shipping, plus tax. And at the time, it sounded like a really good deal, and that's part of why a lot of YouTubers, really recommended it. And that's why I was like, oh shit, this is a good deal, this is a good value. Because I've never really bought something like this before. I have other retro handhelds, and all of them have been under $100. The only other one I have that runs Android is the Anbernic Arc D. And I mainly bought that not even for Android. I bought that because it's like the first time any of these companies have tried pandering to Sega nostalgia as opposed to just, Nintendo stuff all the time. That's why I bought that. But that has its own set of disappointments, and maybe I could do a video on that if people who watch this are interested. That also has Android on it, but you're not going to get a lot of mileage out of the Android side of that device. Not to mention it's a 4x3 screen. How many Android games are formatted for 4x3, right? Like I said, I bought this for the Android gaming experience. God damn it. See, I just lightly brushed my hand like that. And that counted as like a full-on click from the back button, and we launched into Sonic. Yeah, I was saying there's no controller issues with games like Sonic and stuff, because there's no, I guess, pointer support or whatever. Roblox, there are some actually high fidelity, higher end kind of graphics games in Roblox. So I haven't pushed it, but I just install Roblox to see how those run. There was one game in Roblox I played called Block Spin. It's basically like Roblox GTA, and that game has a wide variety of graphic settings, and this can, push it all the way to the max. And since I'm on that topic, we do have our little quick menu here. So we have performance, you get your performance stats, and also this little performance overlay, you can have this be more detailed. I leave this on a lot of times, so I leave it to the less detailed one, so it's not covering my games. You could do your own custom fan mode, but each of these power profiles here will also ramp up the fan mode in accordance with whatever it is you're doing. Balance is pretty much all you need, I think, because if you were playing on a high-end phone, you wouldn't have a fan anyways. So this, just by virtue of having a fan, and as you can see, that's usually where it hovers on low, around 1400 RPM. Just by virtue of this having a fan, it's going to run a lot cooler and smoother than your phone would playing some high-end Android games. But if you are worried, or maybe if you're playing PC games on here through Game Native, you can ramp this up, keep your thing really cool. This thing has a huge battery in it, so battery life, I can confirm, it is as advertised. That's never been an issue for me. This thing lasts very long. But yeah, getting back to my main point. I did not buy this for emulation. This thing is overkill for emulation, honestly. There's so many different handhelds on the market. I find the Linux ones better. If retro emulation is your main focus, there's much less overhead going on in those Linux operating systems because they're not really doing any kind of multitasking or anything. So something as powerful as this is kind of overkill. Those same reviewers that sold me on this thing, that's all they do is they test emulation performance, and it's like, oh geez, it runs everything at 4x resolution, full frame rate. Who would have guessed, right? That's not interesting to me. There's so many different options for emulation. And if you're buying an Android device, you might as well use it to its maximum. So that's why I'm playing these Android games on here. And you might be thinking, well, he said he has a Steam Deck, right? So why doesn't he play some of those games on there? They have PC versions. And yeah, they do. Those same PC versions of, all these gacha games are not really all that well optimized, and they're twice the file size. So this is the 128 gig basic model, and I have a 400 gig micro SD card in here. And that doesn't sound like a lot of space in 2026, but it's enough to get me by for now. If we ignore Game Native, it's plenty of space, really, for a lot of these Android games that I want to play. There are other Android games I would like to play, but stuff like Girls Frontline 2 doesn't really have controller support on mobile. Doesn't really have controller support on PC either. You just kind of got to use the Steam controller configs. Something I would like to mention for anyone interested in this device that nobody ever seems to mention ever with these Android handhelds is that you can install apps to the micro SD card. On a lot of modern phones, they either just straight up don't have an SD slot, or if they do have an SD slot, you could really only use it for media. There's no option to format it as internal storage, or even if you go into the developer options in the Android settings and you enable the setting to force it to install apps on external storage, a lot of times that just doesn't work. As soon as I put in the micro SD card in this, it asked me if I wanted to format it, and it asked me if I wanted to format it as internal storage. So what that means is it's not even seeing it as an external storage device. Every time you download an app from Google Play, it will automatically install to the micro SD card. And the internal storage will be free. So that's I don't know how many Android handhelds do that. I believe this is running Android 14. I have Android 13 phones where even if you plug in your SD card and you go into the Files app by Google, not using the phone's default one, and you say format as internal storage, even if you use the official Google app to do that, and it somehow lets you see that option and tap on it, it will still not format it as internal storage. It'll just crash or whatever, and it won't let you put any apps on the micro SD card. So that's something you could do on here. So I don't know if that was INEO coming through for us and being like, hey, we know you need more than 128 gigs on this thing. That's going to run out real soon. If that was tweaking on their part, thank you. That's huge to me. I know the people who use this as emulation don't need that setting, because you could be totally fine using it as an external media card and just plop all your ROMs on there, and the actual emulator apps won't take up that much space on the internal storage itself, so it's not really a problem for people who are only focused on emulation. But if you are like me and you are playing all these big fancy gacha games, you need a lot more space than what's on the internal storage. So maybe this is common on a lot of these Chinese Android handhelds. If not, it would be great if it was more common, because it's a really great feature from Android versions of old to still have on Android versions of new. So here's another bug. This can display in portrait mode. It has the accelerometer and gyroscope and whatever and all that, but sometimes it just doesn't, and I'll have to reboot the system in order to get that functionality. Let's see if it'll go on this side. Nope. But yes, you can do portrait mode. It was easier to show off in portrait mode, but you have the, yes, you can change the refresh rate. It goes up to 144. I don't really run my games at more than 60 FPS, so I just keep it at 60. However, there's a auto setting there. So like Stella Sora, play that on here, keep it locked at 60, it runs at a solid smooth 60. If I set it to higher than this device can actually run that game at around between 70 and 80 frames per second on like max settings. So I thought maybe if I did auto, it would be like a variable refresh rate thing. And that would be great because then it's not constantly at 144, so you're saving battery, but you're also getting that higher than 60 FPS. Auto does not do that. I don't really know what auto does, because when I do auto, and you're not going to be able to see it here because of the frame rate I'm filming at, and also, like I said, it's easier to show off in portrait mode, which is why I'm not even going to switch it to auto. But when it is in auto, when you're scrolling, it's like super, like I thought I got a bad screen because there was so much ghosting and just like scrolling around in menus and stuff, like settings or like the freaking Google Play Store or anything like that. When you set it to auto, there's a ton of ghosting, it looks like. When you set it to any of the other, like 144, 120, 90, whatever, it doesn't have that. It looks like a smooth 90, 120, 144. I don't remember if they advertise it as a variable refresh rate kind of screen, but it doesn't seem to be one, because when you set it to auto, it's Ghost City. So I just leave it on 60, and that's honestly good enough for me. I don't get too picky with frame rates. I just want 60. Like locked 60 is perfect for me. So the last thing I wanted to touch on was game native. Now, from a lot of the early reviews and previews of this device when they were still in the crowdfunding phase, they did stuff like Game Hub, because game native I don't think was a thing at that time. And they were like, oh, this is perfect for PC gaming because of the turnip drivers. And then Game Native came out, and everyone's like, all right, just jump ship from all those other apps because Game Native is the best, and it's going to get more support a lot quicker than the others. Now, I don't know. Oh, here we go. Update available. Let's see if this fixes my issue. But I left all the settings default because everyone said it's a very plug-and-play app. It's supposed to auto-detect all your stuff. I believe it did, because the default driver it had for everything was that like most recent turnip driver that everyone says this device with its Snapdragon G3 specifically takes advantage of. And I could not get any game to launch. I couldn't get TopNep to launch, which is like a really basic 2D game a toaster could run. Couldn't get HoloCure to run. Couldn't get Earth Defense Force to run. Couldn't get Orange Juice to run. We'll try it out right now. Yeah, I couldn't get any game to open. I just got a black screen. So I went into the settings and I did what some other people said in videos, not specific to this device, because I couldn't really find anything specific to this device other than people just saying, hey, it's great for PC games. And as you can see, they're all marked as compatible. Focus, please. Yeah, they're all marked as compatible. Those are the only type of games I tried. Yeah, it always says known config may work on your GPU, and I always use the default configs because I don't really know what I'm doing otherwise. So maybe it is an error on my part, or maybe I've been lied to by all the people hyping up this app, but why is it doing this as if it's the first time loading? Like I've tried to launch this several times. Okay, whatever. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe the update fixed everything, and I can just cut all of this out.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Still booting. All right, so yeah, usually when I try it, it gets past booting, and then it says that it actually is booting. And then I just get a black screen. I don't even get audio, so it's not the game actually is running, and I'm just not getting video. So yeah, I tried a bunch of different of the turnip drivers. I tried other drivers that wouldn't even be for the system. That didn't work. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong. It's probably a me problem. Like, this is a very tiny game. There shouldn't be a whole lot of shaders to compile here, or like VC redistributables. Installing mono, I'm pretty sure I've installed like all this stuff already. But yeah, like this wasn't the whole PC emulation thing. That wasn't like a huge selling point for me because I was kind of iffy on what would work with that stuff anyways. And even then, it's not like I'm going to be playing current AAA stuff on here. Like I would, if anything, I would just want to play like smaller indie stuff that doesn't have an Android version because this is a very comfortable handheld. I know I kind of glossed over it earlier, so let's get into it. Now, these sticks are a little, they're just flashing. The sticks, wow, they're behaving real bad right now. Look at that. They're flashing, normally they just flash green. They're flashing all sorts of colors real quick now. I'm not even doing anything. I don't know what that's about. I've never seen them do it this bad before. Before I was interrupted. The sticks, they're not like full-size controller sticks, and honestly, I prefer that. I feel for a handheld like this, these sticks, they're concave, so they're pretty comfortable. They're around the size of the Switch joysticks, which I do not like at all. But these are just like comfortable, and they don't have that much range, but they also feel like they have a lot more range than the Switch sticks, even though it's probably like the same. Triggers, full analog triggers, and you can switch them to hair triggers, which is very nice. If I did emulation on here, I would probably switch them to the hair triggers, but I don't, so I don't really feel the need to. Oh, there we go. So we've been 32. See, so I got an error. It's probably not going to focus on that well, which I didn't get last time. So did the game run? It didn't run at all. Does not open. Oh gosh, I don't want to type on here. Typing on this thing is typing on anything with controls on them is kind of a pain. 32 error. Because we're going to be here for a while if I type any more than that. So yeah, I don't know what that's about. We updated, use the known configs, use the default configs, default friggin' thingamagorgans, and it didn't open. So yeah, the sticks, they feel nice, and I don't normally like smaller sticks like this, but for whatever reason, these sticks just feel really nice and smooth. Right amount of resistance for sticks this size. They're concave, which I love. Everything should be concave. Buttons, sticks, everything should be concave. I love concave stuff. Responsive, they're Hall sticks. The triggers are Hall triggers. The speakers, probably heard it while we were in Stellasora, though I don't have the best audio setup to even really showcase it. But speakers, I would say, better than your average phone, better than the Nintendo Switch. Nothing that great, really, but just, better than what I would say most people are used to on these kinds of on mobile devices. Nothing earth-shattering, but another reason I've not purchased iNeo devices before is because they haven't had a headphone jack. You probably can't see that, but there's a headphone jack on this one. So even if the speakers were garbage, that makes up for this. And then, of course, you have Bluetooth, so you could use your Bluetooth headsets. It's just won't stop flashing tonight. I don't know what's going on. It's usually never this bad, but, if that's a problem, if that's a deal breaker for you, there you go. That's I don't know how widespread this issue is, but it's something to look out for. Buttons are, let's go to the controller test so I don't accidentally open everything. Make sure everything's working, make sure nothing's drifting, make sure, see if the dead zones are to your liking. Buttons, they're not that bad. They're all membrane, which I myself, when it comes to handhelds, I prefer clicky buttons. When it comes to anything, I prefer clicky face buttons, but these aren't bad. There's not like a ton of travel to them. It's not like, it's not like an Xbox controller with the friggin' jelly bean buttons that feel like they have 2 miles of travel. So if you are playing a game where you need to mash, you're going to feel right. You're going to feel fine here. That's fine. I usually like it when the R1 and L1 are clicky. These aren't, but it's fine. At the very least, they're not loud. So I'll take quiet shoulders not being clicky, That's fine. Another thing I like on handhelds is a clicky D-pad. On controllers, it kind of depends. Sometimes the membrane does feel better for a full-size controller, but for a handheld, I prefer clicky, but this isn't a bad one. Now, I don't really do, like I said, I don't do emulation on here, so I'm not going to bust out any Hadouken or Contra tests, but a few times I have used it. I haven't gotten that many false diagonals, like you can see right there. If I do get a false diagonal, it's more my fault for just not being all that great. Like I said, I prefer clicky D-pads, but it could be worse because sometimes you do get a clicky D-pad, but it's, you know, loud enough to wake the neighbors up. But so I'll take this rather quieter membrane D-pad that does feel pretty precise over clicky and loud, because some of these companies, they just go, oh, people like clicky D-pads. Let's just put one in there and not even think about how loud it's going to be. Like, if you've used the Xbox Series controller, you'll know what I mean by really loud clicky D-pads. Those things can wake your neighbors up. Yeah, that pretty much does it for everything I specifically wanted to talk about this device. The things that I saw, not a lot of other people focusing on. And a lot of people, like I said in the beginning, a lot of people are kind of shitting on this, and that's more so their experience with iNeo, and that is 100% fair and valid. And if they had sent me a busted unit, which I was very afraid of, like I felt like that was going to be a very real possibility. If they had sent me a totally busted unit, I would have been very angry. I would have been, you know, furious, trying to get a refund, trying to send it back, whatever. The issues I mentioned, they are a little annoying, like the whole flashing thing, and then like the controls in Stellasaur are not working 100%, but it's stuff I can live with. And at the time I pre-ordered it, this model, this was like the cheapest base model they had. It was $240 plus shipping plus tax. And the shipping is kind of insane. It was like $30, which I think is kind of insane for shipping for something like this. There's also nothing this powerful at this price range. Like, at the time, you could get the newest Retroid Pocket 6 or whatever for cheaper than this, but it's also not nearly as powerful. And like I said, that doesn't matter if you're just emulating retro games. But I wanted to play Android games, and I didn't want to buy a handheld that was like weaker than my multiple years old phone. So when I saw this thing, it felt like a no-brainer to me. There's issues, there's jank. Who knows if iNeo's gonna fix it or address it, even if they do see this video. Probably not. Yeah, so far so good. Nothing deal-breaking for me. However, who knows what the price of this thing has gone up to by the time you see this video. Everything's going up right now. So this is probably no longer a deal, especially, like I said, whatever the price has gone up to, it's probably going to be another $30 shipping, then you pay tax. I probably can't recommend this device, but if it's within your budget and you want a Android handheld that is good for, overkill for emulation and, good enough for your Genshin Impact clones and such, I would say go for it, because I really enjoy it. The whole flashing, sometimes this gets on my nerves, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. Like I said, that may be a deal breaker for you. I don't know. Like iNeo, if you see this, please, if you fix anything at all, fix the flashing, because sometimes this has the potential to drive me crazy. Sometimes I can ignore it. Sometimes I just can't. I know there's some stuff I didn't test on here, which is the stuff that everybody else tests, and that's why I didn't test it. Like I said, I'm showing you everything I showed you in this video. This is how I use it. This is what I bought it for. It's my intended use case. And for the most part, it works for my intended use case. So if you have any questions about this device pertaining to that or pertaining to other, day-to-day functionality and user experience stuff and quality of life type stuff, leave a comment, let me know. I'm not a tech reviewer by any stretch. I do have a bunch of handhelds. I got a Steam Deck and I got a bunch of other retro Chinese handhelds. So yeah, maybe if this video pops off and you guys are interested, I could review some of the older stuff I got. If you watch the whole video, I'd appreciate a like, a comment, a subscribe, a share, clicking the links in the description to help support me. That would be cool. And if any companies see this, they like my different angle of reviewing these devices here, and they want to send me some stuff to review, that would be great. I'm not going to say no to free stuff. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. There's probably stuff I missed. Like I said, let me know in the comments. And yeah, if you enjoyed this, keep an eye on the channel. There'll be stuff of other varieties. And I'll catch you all in the next one. Bye.